I'm sorry, Madam Reporter, why don't you stay there? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a evidentiary issue I need to resolve, and I'm going to need to watch a videotape out of your presence, obviously, on all of the gizmos here. So I'm going to ask you to step back into the jury room, and hopefully this will just take a few moments. All right, Madam Reporter, why don't you set up again? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Be seated.
The video is on a laser disc, Your Honor. We've previously dealt with this before. Counsel have seen it. I'd like to show it to the court again at this point.
All right, at this point, your purpose of showing the videotape is to ask Officer Riske if he recognizes the officer who's
Any of
depicted.
these officers, they're on, Your Honor.
All right.
And should he, I think perhaps he should step out while we're doing this, Your Honor.
All right. Officer Riske, why don't you step outside and don't talk to anybody while you're out there. Thank you. Also, if there's a TV monitor out there, don't watch the monitor.
Your Honor, the additional issue of the discovery of this video, we've never been provided a copy of this video.
Well, let's see it first. You may not have an objection to it once you've seen it.
They've seen it before, Your Honor.
How long is this
It's
excerpt?
not very long. We all sat here and watched this before. Your
Not very long doesn't tell me
Honor.
enough.
Okay, Your Honor. Well, 6-7 minutes, all right?
All right.
5-6 minutes.
This is the same videotape they tried to do before, with the same problem.
No,
I don't know that yet.
No.
that was a problem. That was Detective Lang.
right, does that complete the,
Yes.
all right, Mr. Cochran?
This supposed search for truth, counsel goes to great pains through over and over again to talk about how this crime scene is protected. We're going to be able to demonstrate, Your Honor, in one of those photographs, there are 9 or 10 people in this little tiny area, Your Honor, that they've got in there. We can identify a lot of those people from the coroner's office. We know what time they got there, shortly after 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning on the 13th. What we're trying to show here is that, it's not, they would like to have everything their way where they could show that everybody walked around and did all these things, but that's not the truth. And why would they want to mislead this jury? And the facts are, we'll be able to establish it, and I should be able to ask this officer whether or not he represents, whether or not he recognizes Lang, whether or not he recognizes Van Adder, whether or not he recognizes Rogers, and any number of other officers that he may recognize who are walking through that scene in this particular area. And we know that the bodies are not moved till the coroner gets there, and they're there at that particular time. So I think the video is very clear. With regard to the officer, it seems to me that these seem to be sequential of a person walking right in the crime scene. And I think we'll be able to establish that at some point they hosed this area down when they didn't need it anymore, and this officer's walking right through there. And it's just as though the detectives are walking through there. There may be a sheet or whatever down, but you can see on some of these videos, Judge, some people are wearing gloves, some people aren't. Some people have booties on their shoes, some people don't. But there are like 8 or 9 people crowded in this little area. And that's quite contrary to what Ms. Clark has tried to tell this jury. And that's not the truth.
Ms. Clark?
No, the truth of the matter is that this crime scene was handled appropriately. Mr. Cochran would like to show photographs out of context, out of time, and out of sequence, and in one case even trying to misrepresent that 3 photographs are of one person, and the more closely we look, the more we realize it's not even the same person in those 3 photographs, trying to mislead and confuse this jury, and all we're asking for is fairness here. We want the jury to get the truth. We want it to be untwisted and undistorted by counsel in an effort to twist their minds. We want them to get the truth. If the jury concludes that the crime scene was not properly handled, so be it, but at least I want them to make that conclusion based on the way the truth is, what the evidence really is, not some distorted, twisted version of it that counsel wants to give them. Taking these photographs out of context, time context that is a real problem. At some point, we have to release every crime scene, and not just this one. It doesn't get preserved for all eternity. What happens, as the court is very familiar with, is that they go in, they take the photographs, they collect the evidence, and at some point we have to clean up the place and move on. Now, this crime scene was washed down, but not till a few days afterwards, as far as I recall. It was washed down by the family. Prior to that time, though, on the 13th, everything was collected and preserved at some point, after which people were, I'm sure, walking on it, but at that point it no longer mattered. The evidence was collected, and it was photographed, and it was diagrammed, everything was done. And when that's all done, then yes, people will walk through a crime scene. Eventually they have to. Otherwise, we're going to have sections of this entire city where no one can walk for all eternity because it was a crime scene. My God, most of downtown L.A. would be untouchable. So there's just no way that we could possibly use these photographs for any probative value unless we establish what the time was. If the time is demonstrated to be at a point in time when this officer indicates it was carefully cordoned off and no uniforms were allowed in, or very, very few, then that's one thing. Or at a time when he's saying we're all walking up the left side of the pathway in the shrubbery to avoid the blood in the walkway, and the time shows that this occurred when he claims it couldn't have, that's impeaching. But at this point, it's not impeaching, it's distorting, it's confusing, and it's misleading, and that's all it is. And under 352, the court has an obligation to make sure that the jury is not so misled. You should also know that the counter that the court sees on the tape that they played for you is not even the counter from the video. It's the counter from the laser disc that counsel has, which is irrelevant to everything in this case. Counsel knows the real time. He knows it, Your Honor, and he's deliberately hiding it from this court. And he wants to hide it from this jury as well, so that they will be misled and confused, and that's the problem. I don't care if the jury sees this videotape. If it's put in the correct time frame, then they have a right to see it. The problem is that this is a cut-up, chopped-up version of something where counsel has conveniently deleted everything that doesn't support his argument and has deleted the time that would give it any probative value or even any impeaching value. So at this point, we have no upside. There is no probative value. We have only the prejudicial value of misleading and confusing this jury. And until counsel can establish the accurate time when these photographs were taken, when the video clips were taken, it should never be shown to the jury this way.
Sure.
Two more issues, Your Honor. We have never been given a copy of this tape, although counsel promised it to us, a month ago? We should have had it, and we should have had a chance to review it. And that's another discovery issue. They've had it, obviously, for quite some time. The court ordered them to give it to us. They never have, and we still don't have it. We need to know what kind of editing machine they used in order...
We don't need to know that.
Do you think we...
No, we don't need to know.
No,
We don't need to know that.
No, the court may not be interested, but the people need to know.
No,
because
we
that's-
don't need to know that.
But in any case, Your Honor, it's also this officer's testimony that he left at 7:15. And from these photographs, the nature of the sunlight shown, we can see it's much later than that. So we need the real time. We need the real time, or else it's not even impeaching. It's only confusing and misleading and very prejudicial. There is no probative value.
Can I respond, Your Honor?
Briefly.
Counsel talks all this stuff about wanting the truth, and they always want to hide the truth.
Knowing the court reporter has now 4 minutes left of paper.
Thank you, Your Honor. They always want to hide the truth, Your Honor. We have Mr. John Whitney, who helped to shoot, who helped to put this on the laser disc. And that is a laser disc, and the counsel is more than aware of it. They've seen it, and they've had it before. We'll give them a copy of our laser disc, Your Honor, if they want it. The court, this is preposterous for her to stand up, make that argument to right-thinking people in this courtroom and outside. You can see these people stepping over the bodies, Your Honor. Lang is stepping over the bodies. The bodies have not been moved. And she has the temerity, the unmitigated gall to talk about telling the truth about this crime scene. 9 people are gathered around there, and they want to give you a picture that they tiptoed around and never touched anything. That's preposterous, Your Honor. So ultimately, they can have all the theories they want. But as I said before, they're going to be killed by the facts. And I would like, Your Honor, if you have any questions, to address Mr. Whitney about this. This isn't anything we made up. These are the same video they've seen now for the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're more than welcome to our video, Your Honor. We can lay a foundation for this. We can identify these people in that video, and we have a right to show that to this jury. I mean, this is what cross-examination is. We will be able to demonstrate that they did not handle this scene appropriately, Your Honor. And we can clock in the video. The worry about clocking in the number, Mr. Whitney, would you address the court? He has knowledge, if the court would allow me to ask him, about the timing on the video also.
I mean, the counter that's going on the laser disc, that really doesn't concern me.
Okay.
Well, I know what counters are on laser discs. I mean, it's not a mystery.
Mr. Douglas advised we give him the tapes also, Your Honor.
We have given them the tapes.
Yes, Your Honor. We gave him the first tape on the Monday when it was discussed. We gave him the second tape last week. I put on the record.
He did.
All right. All right, at this time, and I want to emphasize at this time, I'm going to sustain the objection under 352 and under foundational bases for these reasons. And listen carefully, counsel. One, your offer was that you wanted this officer to look at some of these items and identify who these police officers were. There's no dispute as to who these people are. We all know who they are. It's not a disputed issue. So to waste the court's time to look at a videotape and say, this is Detective Van Adt or this is Detective Lang, that's a waste of the court's time because that's not a fact in dispute. The issue is who had access to the crime scene and when. Without establishing when those videotapes were taken, it's misleading to the jury unless you've got somebody who can say in relatively absolute terms when those videotapes were taken. This witness cannot testify to those things because he testified he was in a car in the back alley until he left the crime scene. That was his assignment. There are certainly other witnesses who were at the front who can testify to these things. This is the wrong witness. And this is the wrong time to bring up this particular issue.
What started out, Your Honor, with us talking about the officer, the uniformed officer, and may I just address that for a moment? Where, talk about misleading, where we have them go to all this trouble to show all these things, I think I should be permitted to ask them if he recognizes that officer walking right through the scene. Your Honor, the
That
evidence...
one photograph
Yes,
that we have of the back of the officer,
yes.
that one photograph, I'm going to allow you to ask him if he recognizes the person.
Okay,
All
thank
right?
you.
The other stuff,
All right,
that's a factual dispute as to who this is. We may never resolve that.
all right, but I want to ask him. And the others, there'll be Lang and Phillips along, and we'll deal with that, Your Honor.
Right,
And I
that's
ask them to check
the
that
point
record.
I'm making.
They have to take-
Do you understand the point I'm
I heard
making?
it loudly and clearly, and I'm ready to proceed with that.
All right, but that videotape is not coming in unless and until somebody comes in and says, I shot that videotape, this is the date and time when I took it. Because the timing is critical here. But this is not the guy to argue with it about. Over it. Ms. Clark.
May I ask, with respect to the photograph that counsel is going to show to the witness, until we establish a time frame for that picture, may I ask that we not be shown to the jury?
Well, you just ruled on that.
No, I'm going to let him show that, but you can on cross-examination ask, is there any idea, and we'll tell the jury, I'm sure through your cross-examination, that we have no idea when that was taken. Could have been the next day, could have been 3 days later.
Because even if you can identify the officer, how does that help to time the picture?
You ruled on it.
Yeah. All right, let's have the jury, please. All right, hold on just a second. I was going to break at 3:15. Do you want to break now?
Yeah, because I'm going to pay for it. And we're going to make a regular recess at 3:15. That's fine.
I mean, I'll stop now if you want to change court reporters. All right. Court reporter says she just wants to change paper. We'll take a break in about 15. We're going to take a half hour at 3:15. All right, record should reflect we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Mr. Cochran, you may proceed.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. I'd like to show Officer Riske photograph, which we're going to mark, I guess, as defendants next in order, Your Honor. Is this D1011?
1011.
D1011. Now, Officer Riske, do you recognize that as the crime scene there at Bundy?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize the uniform on that man who's walking in the crime scene area?
Looks like a LAPD uniform.
And do you recognize, or from that vantage point, are you able to recognize who that particular police officer is?
No.
Of the names that you gave me earlier, were they all male officers?
Yes.
And of that number, are there any who are particularly buff or who work out regularly?
Overruled. No, not at this point.
Yes.
Tell us which ones who were in uniform out there that day who work out who were particularly buff, the males.
Officer McGowan, but he's black.
It's probably not him.
Are we accounting for body armor in this one as well?
Well, I can ask that question.
Officer Glorioso, he works out.
Glorioso?
Yes, sir. As far as I can recall, that's about it.
Would it be helpful to see the list again of the ones who were?
I know who was there, I just,
All right. But you can't tell us the name of this particular officer?
No, sir.
From that vantage point?
no.
Now, the detectives were dressed in plain clothes, were they?
Yes.
In fact, on one of the photographs that you were asked to look at this morning, we have a photograph of Detective Furman. And did you see him and how he was able to access the area where he was looking for the mid cap, where he was pointing down towards it? Did you see him access that area?
Yes, I did.
Did he have any booties or anything on his shoes at the time he was walking in that area?
No, he didn't.
Were any of the officers wearing any booties on their shoes at all that morning?
No.
Were any of the officers at all using gloves that morning when they were out there?
Not that I recall, no.
Well, I'm looking for a photograph here. Describe for the court and jury, if you would, sir, the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found is a rather small area, is it not?
That's correct.
And in that area, there's some shrubbery,
Yes.
and it's kind of an area that's totally enclosed, is it not?
That's correct.
Can you give us the dimensions of that area where his body was found?
I would estimate 6 by 6, 10 by 6, I'm not sure.
10 by 6? I'm advised that the photograph that I'm looking for, Your Honor, is number 55, which probably the switch should be cut on. Just before we do that, however, let me get back to this area where Mr. Goldman's body was found. What are the dimensions of that area?
I would guesstimate between 6 by 6 and 10 by 6. I'm not sure.
If two men in the approximate area of 5'10", 175 are in there, in that particular area, they pretty much cover that area. Is that a fair statement? They were standing upright in that area?
To cover it?
Yes, sir. It'd be pretty crowded in there, would it not?
Possibly, yes.
Did you step in that area at all?
No, I didn't.
You were on the other side of
On
the
the
fence,
outside
is
of
that
the
right?
fence.
All right, may we see People's 55 for identification? Cut the feed drum.
If we may have a moment, we have some slight confusion as to which is requested.
place this exhibit, I'll have to get the numbers on the board. Madam Clerk, what number is this, do we remember? 875 Bundy?
54.
P54. I'll place it up here. So, with regard to P54, for identification, the area that you've described as 10 by 6 or smaller is the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so it's bounded by a fence on at least 2 sides. Is that correct?
Right.
And is there a tree or something to the left of where the body's found there?
I believe he was leaning against a tree, yes.
All right. And do you remember how big that tree was or is?
No, I don't.
Now, with regard to this particular exhibit here, was any of this evidence moved while you were there? This
No.
envelope or any of these items?
No,
And while you were there, it was not moved as far as you know?
it was not moved.
It was not moved at all? All right. Let me see P55.
Now, you should cut the feed for this photo.
Yes, sir. Yes. Now, can you see it on your monitor?
Yes, sir.
Is that Detective Furman?
Yes, sir.
And the items that he's pointing toward, were they obscured from view under the plant material, plant foliage area that we see?
Partially, yes.
And thank you for making it clear. And he is in that photograph standing over in the dirt area. To his left is where Mr. Goldman's body was found.
That's correct.
And were you still at the scene when this photograph was taken?
Yes, I was.
Was this after you'd been up on the landing and it showed the detectives the various items that you'd seen earlier?
This is after they returned from Rockingham.
All right, you were still there?
Yes.
And so this would be about what time in the morning?
Whatever time they get back, I don't know.
All right.
6:45, I don't know.
All right, 6:45?
I really don't know.
All right, after they returned from Rockingham.
Right.
And that's Detective Furman's shoe in that photograph?
That's correct.
Did you see the photographer take this picture?
Yes, I did.
And where was he standing when he took the picture of the photographer?
He was, I believe he was standing on the steps up to the landing. Either that or on the landing itself. I'm not quite sure.
Above where the body was.
Right.
He was somewhere behind this particular detective at the time he
Right.
took this photograph. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to this photograph here, this is People's 875 South Bundy. People's 54, and I guess this is the second photograph, Your Honor, on the left in the middle. There is a shoe in this photograph also of some officer's shoe without being covered in and about the scene there. Whose shoe is that, do you know?
I have no idea.
Did you see this photograph being taken?
No, I didn't.
That's not your shoe, is it?
No, it isn't.
I have just a second more, Your Honor.
Sorry?
Fine, we're at the board, fine, thank you. Madam Clerk?
I think we're about to lose the easel there.
Yeah, it seems that way, Your Honor. I'll hold it. Madam Clerk, the evidence found at Bundy, number of that one,
No, that hasn't been knocked out.
can we, what will be your next one?
You want to mark that as People's next in order?
Yes, I think it's People's Exhibit, Your Honor.
People's 56.
People's 56? All right, well, this is People's 56, the evidence found at Bundy. I want you to take a look, if you will, at the envelope in these two different photographs, People's 54 and People's 56. First of all, I want you to look at what's been marked 104 on People's 56. See the envelope here?
Yes, sir.
You see where the grouting on the envelope is across the grouting?
Yes, sir.
Here at 104, do you see that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And I want you to look at the People's 54, I believe. You see the grouting here?
Yes, sir.
The envelope's on the other side of the grouting?
Yes.
Can you explain how that envelope got moved?
No.
Can't?
No.
Also, it's one other photograph I need, Your Honor.
All right, let's take our recess then at this point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a recess at this point. Please remember my admonition to you, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, have any contact with any of the parties in the case, or allow anybody to talk to you. Don't perform any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Let me ask everybody to be seated and be quiet while we're waiting. All right, we're going to reconvene at 3:45, and let me just tell you one other thing before I let you go. As I mentioned to you, we were contemplating taking a field trip out to the scene, both at Bundy and at Rockingham, with a few side stops in between. I plan on doing that, as I mentioned to you, in the next week to 2 weeks, and when we do that, I'm going to encourage you to dress comfortably, since it'll be a rather long day. All right, you're the best dressed jury I've seen in a long time. So let's see what kind of casual clothes you have. All right, let's reconvene at 3:45. All right, and officer, you can step down. You're ordered to come back half hour. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. The defendant's again present with his counsel. People are represented. The witness, Mr. Riske, is on the stand right now. The jury is not present. Mr. Cochran, you indicated you wanted to...
Since we're going to be quick, so let me do it after the end of the day. I'll have enough questions to go forward.
Okay.
So let's use the rest of our time.
Okay. Officer Riske, are you a P2? P2. Probably the longest day of your life. All right, let's have the jury, please. All right, we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Officer Robert Riske is still on the witness stand, still under oath. And Mr. Cochran, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. May I approach again?
You may.
Just when we broke, Officer Riske, I asked you about the apparent movement of the envelope, and I now wanted to ask you, if I could, to look at Exhibit 56. And I want to show you on Exhibit 56 two photographs side by side, Your Honor. These aren't otherwise numbered, but if they were, should I make them A through whatever?
Yes.
G and H.
All right.
of Exhibit 56. I want you to step down if you can, and block that is, and I want you to look at the glove under this foliage here, this plant. Can you see it from there?
Yes, sir.
Rather laser pinpoint?
Yes, sir.
If you'll notice, the fingers of the glove are pointed toward a tennis shoe. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And do you notice that the V part of the glove is almost up against the walkway there? Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
I'm indicating that. I'm going to make sure everybody can see that. Do you see?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Now I want you to now shift your attention over to this next exhibit where there's a 102 marked herein. Can you see where the V part of the glove is now pointing in another direction,
Yes, sir.
and that the fingers of the glove are now pointed in a different direction also?
Yes,
The glove
sir.
has been moved? You see that?
Yes, sir.
Were you there when this happened?
No, I wasn't.
Now, one of the things that you tried to do at this scene was to preserve it so that evidence was not moved. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
All right,
Your
Mr.
Honor,
Cochran,
yeah, I'd
I'm
like
sorry.
to show it to the other two.
I was about to
Oh.
suggest that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Right.
I'd have some help. I have some, well, I have some help from these two lawyers. Appreciate it.
These right now. I think we're just working with one of these right now. Well, let's let the jury down at the short end down here take a look. You may.
Now, Officer Riske, first of all, with regard to the envelope which we talked about first, with regard to the envelope, and this photograph here on, is that 56? People's 56 and identification. You see, Officer Riske, as I pointed out, you see the grouting there and the envelope?
Yes,
that
sir, I do.
location? The envelope is beyond the grouting?
Yes, sir.
See that? Now, Mr. Douglas, can you put that down just a second? I want to show him the other envelope, the other photograph. Let's do it this way, Carl. Let's see. Want to do it this way. This way. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, we now have exhibits 56 and 54. What we're trying to demonstrate. You see the grouting, Officer Riske, on this, where the grouting is there in the envelope? You see that?
Yes, sir.
And up here, you see where the grouting is in the envelope?
Yes, sir.
You can see it's been moved in those two pictures, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from 56 to 54. All right, let's move now, gentlemen, to the 56 in regard to the glove, the location of the glove. For the record, Madam Reporter, we're referring now to People's 56 for identification. Now, Officer Riske, with regard to the glove here in what is now 56G, you see the V part of the glove there?
Yes, sir, I
Up
do.
against the walkway there?
Yes.
You see the fingers of the glove pointing toward the shoes there, tennis shoes?
Yes.
And if you look to the right at 56H, see the V part of the glove is pointing in a different direction, and the fingers are pointing in a different direction?
Yes.
And in this photograph, 56G, is there also a cap somewhere under this foliage?
Yes, sir.
It's hidden by pretty much by the foliage there.
It'll be right here.
Now, so that we're clear, would I say that?
They can't see.
Thank you. Thank you, John. You may begin. Thank you very much, sir. I believe that you told us earlier that you were present when Detective Furman returned from Rockingham. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Although you couldn't tell us the exact time that he got back, it was your belief that he'd been away and had gone to Rockingham for about an hour, and that he returned somewhere perhaps after 6:30. Is that a fair
That's
statement?
correct.
And that the photograph of Furman with nothing on his shoes, but with his shoes in the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found, was taken after he returned back from Rockingham. Is that right?
Right.
And it's clear, is it not, and you recall, do you not, that the coroner, the L.A. County Coroner's Office, had not arrived at that scene by the time that you left at 7:15. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So when you left that morning, both of the bodies were still in their same relative positions. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
If you know, sir, had the coroner's office been called at all by the time that you left?
I have no idea.
You have no knowledge of all of that? All right, but you know the bodies were still there.
Yes.
So that the pictures which I've just shown you, where the evidence apparently has been moved, while you were there at least, did you see the photographer taking any of these pictures?
No, I didn't. I saw him take a picture of Furman. That's it.
All right, now the picture of Furman was in the same general area, was it not?
That's correct.
And so at this point, the photographer was no longer in the back. He was now up in the front part of the location, right?
That's correct.
Did he continue to shoot pictures after that?
I saw him take a picture of Mark Furman. That's the only one I saw, besides the rear.
Did you continue to watch the photographer after that?
Yes.
And did you watch him until you left, or did you go and do something else?
I stayed in the front of the crime scene the whole time until I left.
All right, now when you were outside in the crime scene and outside in your car writing your report, you weren't watching the photographer at that point, were you?
I wrote my report in the rear.
In the rear of what?
Of the rear of the, in the alley.
In other words, the report that I read to you earlier,
That's correct.
you read that in the rear at 5:15?
I wrote that in the rear, yes.
All right. When you were back in the front, you weren't at all times watching the photographer, were you, as he took these pictures?
No.
In other words, he was doing his job, you were doing your job.
No, he wasn't taking photos. He didn't take these pictures when I was there.
Okay, he took these pictures later?
I would assume he didn't take them when I was there.
All right, well, you see the pictures now, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't see them taken when you were there.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Now, you described for us that at one point, sir, as part of your duties there, you searched in and around the alleyway from Dorothy, I think, to Bundy, to Gorham. Do you call that?
Yes.
And what were you searching for?
Anything, any other evidence we might find?
Were you searching for bloody clothes?
Bloody clothes, a bloody handprint on a trash can, maybe evidence in a trash can, additional blood drops,
Searching for knives?
anything.
Your search, were you searching by yourself or in company with some other officer?
I was alone.
And who had directed you to do this search?
Nobody.
And as you searched, how long did you search, sir?
10 minutes, maybe.
And during the time that you searched, did you ever find any bloody clothes or a knife or anything of that nature at all?
No, I didn't.
Were any of the other officers who you previously told us were at the scene that morning, were any of them searching, if you recall?
I know they were knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, but if they were searching, I have no knowledge.
You don't know whether they were searching or not?
No.
All right, but you saw a number of officers fanning out in the area. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Now, when the four detectives left Bundy and went to Rockingham, they all go together?
I didn't see them leave. I don't know how they went.
All right, you knew at some point they had left, but you don't know how they
That's
left,
correct.
right? You know why all four of them went over there?
Pardon me?
You know why all four of them went over there?
No, I don't.
It's true, is it not, that once Van Adder and Lang were assigned to this case, Furman and Phillips were off the case, right?
Meaning,
As
off
the
case.
detectives on the case.
They could be the assisting detectives. They just weren't in charge.
Let me ask you this. Do you know that for a fact?
No.
All right. So, as an officer of some 4 years' experience, had you ever been at a scene where robbery homicide detectives came and took over?
That depends on what you mean. I've handled cases where the K car, which works for robbery homicide, comes out and takes a report.
Now, I'm talking about a situation where, because of the nature of the case, robbery homicide detectives are assigned to the case, and the detectives who are on the case are then taken off. We had that situation before?
No.
And when you talked to Detective Furman, when the two of you were talking, and you were advised that robbery homicide was taking over the case from Phillips and Furman, remember that conversation?
Yes.
Was Furman disappointed because he's being relieved by Van Adder and Lang?
He didn't tell me he was disappointed, no.
What did he tell you about that? Did he tell you they were just relieving him?
Yeah, they just said robbery homicide was on the way to take over.
All right. Now, if robbery homicide arrived then sometime after 4 o'clock to take over, do you know why it was then that all 4 of the detectives then went over to Rockingham?
No.
Okay. And if robbery homicide had taken over at 4, do you know why it was that Furman returned back to the address there at Bundy after 6:30 and was participating in taking pictures? Do you know why that
No, I
was? When Furman came back to Bundy, was he accompanied by his partner also, Detective Phillips?
Yes.
Was he there also when he came back?
He was in the street.
All right. And did you give him the phone back at that point?
Yes, I did.
By the way, with regard to your testimony here, have you watched television at all in connection with this case before today?
Well, you can't really help it. It's always on.
It's always on, isn't it? Were you told that you were not supposed to watch television?
No.
The DH didn't tell you, the judge had ordered all witnesses not to watch television? They didn't tell you that?
Not that I recall, no.
So you've been watching this, and without them telling you that, and did you hear the testimony of Pablo Finvez with regard to the color of that Jeep?
No.
Did you see his testimony?
No, I didn't.
You still believe that Jeep is dark green?
I believe it was dark green.
You've never heard anybody when you're watching television say that, have you?
No.
But what part of this proceedings have you been watching on television?
Of this trial?
Yes, of this trial. Sir.
None of this trial. I saw the prelim.
And you've not been watching since that time?
No.
You just said it was always on television. What have you seen?
Just you turn on a channel, it's on. You change the channel.
Well, if you change the channel, you turn to another channel that has it on, don't you?
Yeah, but you just keep changing the channel.
Keep doing what?
You just keep changing the channel. There's more than one channel, sir.
No, I hope so. But when you turn from one channel to the other, what have you seen in connection with this case and this trial? Because you weren't aware of the court's order. That's the question.
I don't recall seeing anything on this case. On the trial. I saw
None
the
of the
prelim.
testimony?
No.
None of the testimony?
No.
Now, when the 4 detectives went over to Rockingham, do you know whether or not the photographer went with them?
I don't know.
Did you see him during the time when you didn't see the 4 detectives?
I believe he was still at Bundy.
You think he's still at Bundy?
Yes, sir.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the log at all?
Well, I didn't write the log again, so.
So would that refresh your recollection or not?
I didn't write the log. I don't know.
All right. Well, what did you see him doing if you believe he was there during the time they were away?
Standing by a car, talking to somebody else.
And it's your belief he did not go to Rockingham, right? Is that what you're telling us?
I believe he stayed. I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Well, I believe he stayed at Bundy.
Now, this blood that you described toward the rear gate of that property, could you see that with the naked eye, or did you see that with the use of a flashlight?
Flashlight.
And did you and your partner both see it, or did you see it first?
I saw the blood on the interior. He saw the blood on the exterior.
And did you tell the detectives, Lang and Van Adder, about this?
I showed it to Furman and Phillips. I don't know if they told him or not.
You showed it to Furman and Phillips.
That's correct.
You did not show it to Lang and Van Adder?
No.
And you felt that was important evidence, did you not?
Yes.
With regard to any or either of these fences, did you ever have occasion to close either the front gate that we've previously seen or this rear gate?
No, I didn't.
So you don't know the sound that those gates might make when they're closed?
No.
You didn't test those at all?
No.
Now, may have asked you this, with regard to how that front gate is open, while you were there, did you or any of the officers conduct any kind of an experiment to see how that works?
No,
How you get in the front gate?
no.
You didn't do that?
Mm-mm.
While you were there, did the fingerprint dusters or the technicians who do that, did they come to the scene at all?
No.
And while you were there, you continued as best you could to try and preserve that crime scene without moving evidence, right?
That's correct.
Or stepping in blood. Is that right?
That's correct.
You did not return to that scene again in any official capacity after you left at 7:15 or 7:20 on the morning of June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
Not while it was still a crime scene, no.
Were you aware that at some point that crime scene was hosed down? Do you know what time and what day that was done?
No.
You don't know?
No, I don't.
You don't know what date it was no longer designated a crime scene, do you?
No.
All right, Your Honor, perhaps this might be an appropriate place. I'm not finished.
If you want to approach, please.
Sure.